World War II was a time of rapid innovation, as nations raced to develop weapons that could give them the upper hand on the battlefield. While many iconic and effective firearms emerged from this period, not every design was a success. Some guns were plagued with flaws that made them more of a hindrance than a help to the soldiers who carried them. Today, we take a closer look at some of the worst gun designs of World War II firearms that were unreliable, inefficient, and in some cases, downright dangerous to their users. We begin with the Nambu Type 94, a Japanese pistol that quickly gained a notorious reputation among the troops who were unfortunate enough to be issued one. Designed by Kijiro Nambu, this sidearm was intended to be a compact and reliable weapon for Japanese officers. However, the reality was far from the intention. The Type 94 was plagued by a series of design flaws that made it both difficult to use and dangerous to the user. The most infamous issue was the external sear, which could be accidentally triggered by slight pressure on the side of the gun, causing it to fire unintentionally. This defect made the Type 94 one of the most hazardous sidearms of the war. In addition to the safety concerns, the Type 94 was also uncomfortable to hold and had a weak firing mechanism, which often resulted in misfires. The gun's underpowered 8mm round further compounded its ineffectiveness, making it one of the least respected weapons among the Axis powers. Although it first saw service in World War I, the Chauchat light machine gun was still in use by the French army during World War II. Unfortunately, this weapon became infamous for its terrible design and performance on the battlefield. The Chauchat was a bipod-mounted machine gun, but it was marred by a number of serious issues. The most glaring flaw was its open-sided magazine, which allowed dirt and debris to easily enter the gun, causing frequent jams. On the battlefield, where conditions were often less than ideal, this design flaw turned the Chauchat into a soldier's nightmare. Furthermore, the gun's recoil was difficult to control, and its construction was often of poor quality, with many parts being poorly machined. This led to excessive wear and tear, making the gun unreliable even in the best conditions. The Chauchat's poor performance was so notorious that it became known among soldiers as the worst gun ever. Italy's Breda Model 30 was another light machine gun that fell short of its intended purpose. Issued to Italian infantry units, the Breda 30 was meant to provide much-needed firepower, but its design flaws made it a liability rather than an asset. One of the most significant problems with the Breda 30 was its magazine design. The gun used a fixed, top-mounted magazine that required individual rounds to be oiled before loading. This not only slowed down the reloading process, but also attracted dust and dirt, leading to frequent jams and malfunctions. Additionally, the Breda 30 had a complex and fragile firing mechanism that was prone to breakage, especially in the harsh conditions of the battlefield. Its low rate of fire, combined with its unreliability, made it one of the least effective light machine guns of the war. Many Italian soldiers preferred to use captured weapons from their enemies rather than rely on the Breda 30. The United States also had its share of problematic firearms during World War II. One such weapon was the M1941 Johnson rifle, an experimental design that was intended to compete with the M1 Garand for the standard issue rifle of the US military. At first glance, the Johnson rifle had some advantages, such as its unique recoil-operated action and the ability to be reloaded with a partially full magazine. However, these features also contributed to the gun's downfall. The Johnson rifle's recoil system made it less stable and more prone to jamming, especially in combat situations where soldiers might not have the time to maintain the weapon properly. Its complex design also made it more difficult to manufacture and repair, compared to the simpler and more reliable M1 Garand. While some paratroopers and marine units did use the Johnson rifle during the early years of the war, it was quickly overshadowed by the more robust and reliable M1 Garand. The Johnson rifle is remembered today as an interesting but ultimately flawed experiment in American firearms design. Finally, we come to the Liberator pistol, a weapon that was never intended to be a mainstay on the battlefield, but instead was designed as a tool for resistance fighters. Manufactured by the United States, the Liberator was a single-shot pistol made of stamped metal, and it was about as crude as firearms come. The Liberator was designed to be a low-cost, disposable weapon that could be air-dropped behind enemy lines. It was meant to be used by resistance fighters to assassinate an enemy soldier and then take their weapon. However, the pistol's design left much to be desired. The Liberator's single-shot capacity, combined with its lack of rifling, made it extremely inaccurate beyond a very short range. Reloading was also a slow and cumbersome process, requiring the user to manually eject the spent casing and load a new round into the chamber. While the Liberator was intended to be a temporary solution, it was often seen as more of a last resort than a reliable weapon. Most resistance fighters preferred to use captured enemy firearms, which were far more effective in combat. The Liberator remains a curious footnote in the history of World War II weapons. A gun designed for a very specific purpose, but ultimately too flawed to make a significant impact. World War II saw the development of some of the most iconic and effective firearms in history, but not every weapon lived up to expectations. The guns we've discussed today were plagued by design flaws that made them unreliable, ineffective, and in some cases, dangerous to their users. While they may not have been the war's most celebrated weapons, they serve as important reminders of the challenges and complexities of military innovation. Thank you for watching.